Hello again, and here we go with a history of saps, blackjacks, and slungshots. A really interesting item, possibly a one-of-a-kind. Sadly, I neither own it nor got to see it in person. But it's so unique, I asked the dealer if I could have permission to use the pictures for this video, and they kindly said yes, so I definitely want to thank them. This is International Military Antiques, ima-usa.com. And there's much better pictures coming up. This is just the only one I have of the entire thing. So we're looking at a bosun's cosh, which I covered in a previous video, but this is a very unusual one. This one is from the Georgian era, at least if the provenance is correct. So that's cool. Victorian, bashers are cool too, but this one's older. It's from the Georgian era, and we're told, and you'll see coming up why, that it was with the HMS Ajax that it was used on board there. Quick reminder, a bosun's cosh is a kind of sap, or cosh, but it fits in our weapons family, in other words. And, it's a impact weapon that's got a dense weighted core with a softer covering. You can see the needle hitch, we're about to see it in detail. And this one does not have flexibility, but they often did. Now, I'm calling it a bosun's cosh, but keep in mind we can't guarantee that it was carried by the bosun, right? This is really a type of sailor's cosh, and it could have been used for a couple different purposes. The main one would be as a disciplinary tool, and that's why it's called a bosun's cosh, because the bosun was a figure of authority on the ship, and if you were slacking or fighting or doing something you shouldn't do, you just might get conked on the head with one of these. So you can see why a sap would be attractive for that use, because it doesn't do any good to kill or crack the skull of one of your sailors, right? It's just to teach them a lesson. If you hit it hard enough, could it do those things? Well, of course, but this way you have a safer way to inflict punishment. And we should definitely take a second to appreciate the quality of work here. Look at the craftsmanship. This is the kind of thing you see with the sailors' koshes versus other types of saps, right? They were experts at this kind of thing, and just kind of naturally enough used it in their weapon making. Now, this particular specimen is being sold as a press gang cosh, which is fair enough, and that brings up the other major use for this kind of thing, which was impressment. A press gang prosecutes impressment, and that's basically the practice of beating someone up and taking them onto a ship so that they can enjoy their new career as a sailor on your vessel. A lot of different weapons were used in impressment to coerce people to come along, right? Swords, pistols, you name it. But if you actually had to put somebody out and drag them along because they were really putting up a fight, it's not going to do much good to use a sword. It's going to be messy, or anything else that might kill them. So once again, the sap's kind of status as the world's original stun gun made it quite attractive for this use. Here you can see the detail on the bottom end, right? This is where you'd grip, it's got a lanyard, and obviously the same type of detailed work is done on the butt. But you might want to notice this is not a double-ended cosh. A lot of times bosun koshes or press gang koshes are symmetrical. This is a one-ended version, which is worth noting. Now, in the world of antiques, you often get kind of little paper notes that were written a long, long time ago and attached to an item, which give you all the evidence you're going to get as to, what it really was, how far back it goes, that kind of thing. You can see this one has a step up there. Now, does this prove anything? Well, not necessarily, but when it comes to antique weapons and just antiques in general, you take what you can get. So this is obviously why I was saying it's a Georgian version, and naming the ship in particular. The Ajax was launched into the waters of the Thames before heading out to the ocean in 1798 and fought in the Battle of Trafalgar, so that's pretty cool. It had kind of a short lifespan because in 1807 a devastating fire ushered in its retirement. This, however, is not why I was saying this one is so unique. I've never seen a placard like this on any antique sap, but that's not the actual selling point here. The reason I said this is possibly one of a kind is because of this. The haft turns out to hold a nasty, lethal surprise. This probably would have made some eyeballs bulge once the blade was, disclosed during an altercation, because you just do not see koshes like this. Combination weapons are really interesting. They're never as popular as single-use weapons because they don't do they don't serve either purpose as well as an individual dedicated weapon would. So a short sword, it doesn't have any moving parts, whereas this blade has to have that, right? So there's no mechanisms that can break. A single piece cosh is going to have a nice big ball of lead there up at the head, and again, there's nothing to jar loose or anything like that. There's not a hollow haft, which could obviously crack or break, nothing like that. But combination weapons give you the ability to do more than one thing. And that could obviously come in handy if the situation goes south, right? Whether you're in a tavern trying to knock out a drunk and drag him back to your ship, or just, in some kind of a on-deck fight. Either way, you have an option here that it would not be normally available. So how did somebody come up with this? Well, the closest weapon I can think of, like the same, time and place, that kind of thing, would be a sword cane. Those are associated with Victorian England very strongly, but they existed in the Georgian era as well. And there you have kind of a shaft that's hiding a blade. Worked very differently because you'd grab the handle of the cane, slide the blade out, and now you'd have the cane in one hand and the knife or sword in the other. This obviously has a different and much more complicated mechanism. It's going to be more similar to like a what they call a flick blade or a gravity knife. I have to say, I don't know when that kind of mechanism started to be used in English weapons or just weapons in the West, so that would be an interesting point of corroboration. If that didn't develop until later, then you might have suspicions about how old this thing really is. It's just not something I could easily find. And here they provide a really great view of the business end and the blade coming out. So really interesting. It's got that extra space there. Don't ask me what that does. Maybe there's some kind of catch in there. You can see the dividing line in the blade as well. I think maybe it comes out, it rejoins where we can't see, which then keeps it from going out too far. Total guesswork there. I don't make swords or anything like that. But what a great high definition picture. You can see the needle hitch and the blade looks authentically aged, right? And here's a look at the head with the blade retracted, and it's funny, you can see the point. I think it's a great picture. You see it just hiding there. If upon close inspection, if someone was walking towards you with one of these, you might realize there's more to this than meets the eye at first. This is also the best view for guessing at how this thing might have worked. You can see that perpendicular space. It's got a hole in there on one side, and I presume on the other, so maybe that gives a clue to there was a peg that's now missing or something like that. Regardless, this is the most unique bosun or sailor's cosh that I have ever seen. So I'm glad I just kind of tripped across it online and that the folks at IMA were nice enough to let me use it. Thanks.